Hello everyone, my name is Gavin and this is the Heathen household. Today we're going back to the roots, to the very start, to answer a very simple, yet somehow very complicated question. Just what is heathenry? What is heathenry? How is it different from Norse Paganism, Ásatrú, and general paganism? We'll be discussing this topic along with a few definitions in today's video. But first, a disclaimer. The definitions I'm using for Norse Paganism, Heathenry, and Ásatrú are, as definitions go, a little subjective. These definitions come from my 13 years of being a practicing heathen, from watching and getting to know people who identify with each term, and from being in the community for such a long amount of time. Because of this, some people may resonate with one term, but like a different definition, and that's okay. You just won't find these definitions on Merriam-Webster. Without further ado, let's get into it. Heathenry, the practice of the heathen religion. Most of us are familiar with the term heathen, and most of us are introduced to the word from a Christian context. Heathen, to be pagan, non-Christian, uncouth, so on and so forth. The dictionary definition of the word heathen is of or relating to people or nations that do not practice Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. The origin of the word, many etymologists presume, comes from one who dwells in a heath or the countryside. Although this isn't exactly why we use it. Why do heathens use a word that, without Christianity, Islam, or Judaism to act as contrasters, doesn't appear to be religious in nature? Well, that answer is twofold. Heathenry, like virtually every single historical folk religion, did not have a name when it was being practiced. Religions often did not have names, no isms, no ists, because they were often the only religion being practiced within a specific region, and were integral to the lives of those same practitioners. Practicing their native religions, forms of paganism such as Celtic paganism, Norse paganism, Slavic paganism, and so on and so forth would have simply been a way of life. There needed to be no word for it. This changed, however, when Christianity came onto the scene. Now there was a new religion, and the old religion needed a label of some kind for people to differentiate. Enter heathen, or more specifically, heathen. This word appears alongside a mention of none other than Odin himself in the skaldic poem Ásatrú, or Verses of an Eastern Journey, by Sighvatur Þórðarson, an Icelandic skald, around 1019. This word is the only word we have from any source used by a historical practitioner of the Norse folk religion to describe itself, and thus the term heathen is used because it has a level of historicity to it, and because there is no other name for the religion itself. Heathenry, however, has come to be more than just the Norse folk religion, but virtually every folk religion from the Germanic ethno-linguistic branch of the Indo-European language family on down. To put it simply, heathenry has come to reference every Germanic language-speaking religion, which are roughly Continental Germanic paganism, of which is further broken down by tribe, Anglo-Saxon paganism, and Norse paganism, which can also be further divided into different cultural forms. That is, however, a bit beyond the scope of this video. This is a lot of information, so let's recap. Heathenry is an umbrella term that references every religion from the Germanic ethno-linguistic branch of the Indo-European language family. We use the word heathen because it is the only identifier used by a historical practitioner of the Norse folk religion. Heathenry is generally broken up into two categories, which will majorly define our definitions from here on out: reconstructionist and eclectic. Reconstructionist heathenry is heathenry built up from the primary sources, the sagas, Eddas, runestones, contemporary sources such as Adam of Bremen, Tacitus, Ibn Fadlan, and so on and so forth. Reconstructionist heathenry seeks to be as genuine and historical as possible within the confines of the modern world that we live in. This means applying the historical heathen system of morality as much as possible, engaging in heathen social practices as much as possible, and using a decidedly heathen worldview. In short, it is an attempt to reconstruct heathenry as it was, rather than suiting it to the conveniences, moralistic tastes, and post-enlightenment world we live in today. Recon heathenry, essentially, is as close to historical heathenry as one can get in the 21st century. Before we get any further, let me say that this does not imply that Reconstructionist heathenry denies science or scientific advancement. While a worldview is important, it is equally crucial to understand that some of the worldview is built on the observational capabilities of people at the times. Case in point, there certainly is a shield that protects us from the sun, but the legendary Svalin is in fact our atmosphere, and not a literal shield. I do not condone nor practice a full form of religious literalism. That aside, let's define eclecticism. Eclectic Norse paganism is the practice of drawing upon multiple sources in order to establish one's religion or practice, centered around Norse paganism. Notice that I don't use the term heathenry alongside the word eclectic. That's because heathen is generally not a term used by eclectics. The most used terminology of more eclectic practitioners is Norse Paganism, as opposed to heathen. This is our primary difference between heathenry and Norse Paganism, the general level of acceptable eclecticism. Examples of eclecticism are drawing upon documented Roman practice to create Norse-centered rituals practices, incorporating spiritual modes of thought from religions like Buddhism, and advocating for a belief in reincarnation or any other non-heathen addition to heathenry that incorporates an outside religious element as opposed to secular practices. This is, however, sometimes unavoidable. We cannot completely and accurately reconstruct certain forms of heathenry, and so there are times where holes inevitably must be filled. The practice of filling these holes in practices and rituals is generally accepted by the Reconstructionist community as it is seen as necessary. What is generally denoted as eclectic are additional, arbitrary additions that are more a matter of personal taste and personal interest, such as worshiping a non-heathen deity or engaging in a non-heathen religious rite. Norse paganism is essentially a catch-all for those who fit somewhere between Reconstructionism and eclecticism. Some people may not care about having their practice be perfectly historical, but also aren't avidly and eagerly taking from other religious practices to create their own unique practice, while others may care greatly about practicing historically but also worship a god of a different pantheon, while even still others may simply worship one Norse god alongside a mix of gods of different pantheons. Norse paganism is the largest umbrella term we have, where practitioners are concerned. The fundamental difference between Norse paganism and general paganism, however, is that people who call themselves Norse pagans, no matter how Reconstructionist or eclectic, tend to focus on Norse-centric practice. Norse paganism is, in summary, the catch-all term for Norse-centric pagans. Now that we've defined heathenry and Norse paganism, Reconstructionism and eclecticism, let's explore the final definition of today's video, Ásatrú. Ásatrú comprises two parts, Ás referencing the gods, or specifically the Aesir, and Trú meaning true, essentially meaning true to the gods, or more specifically, true to the Aesir. This word, despite having the structure of an Old Norse word, is a modern word that was created in modern times to describe the religion of the historical Norse pagans. It is, however, not indicative of the attitudes of its practitioners. Most do not just specifically worship the Aesir. However, it has branched off into another term as time has gone on, which is Valnotru, or true to the Vanir. And people who use that term tend to specifically worship the Vanir, or Freya, Freyr, and Njordr. Back to the word Ásatrú. Ásatrú was mostly popularized in the 1970s, and is less across-the-board eclectic than Norse paganism has the capacity to be, but yet is definitively eclectic due to one specific factor, the incorporation of Wicca. Ásatrú is extremely tied to Wicca mainly because the individuals in the 70s were coming to heathenry from Wicca. This has led to practices such as Midsummer, which has no basis in historical Norse heathenry, following the 8-spoked wheel of the year for holidays, which contrasts with the primary 3 bloats of historical heathenry, the usage of ritual circles, calling of the corner-style ritual openings, and many other Wicca-based practices within heathenry. Some of these are extremely overt, such as the celebrating of Imbolc, Samhain, and Beltane, while others seek to be more legitimate by changing the names of the Wiccan holidays to more Norse-themed ones, or trying to overlay a Norse practice onto a Wiccan one, such as calling Samhain Alfablot, or renaming Lammas as Freyrfaxi. And some are more timing related, like the practice of Yule on the winter solstice as opposed to using the more historically accurate heathen lunisolar method for the dating of Yule. Now that we've defined heathenry and its forms, it's time for the second question. Which one is better? This is, fortunately, a straightforward question. It depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for an established practice that's more rooted in esotericism and relates to most pagans, Ásatrú is what you're going to be looking for. If you're looking to take something from the Norse area and incorporate it into your own personal spirituality or path, Norse paganism is what you're going to want to hone in on. However, if you're looking to really make Norse heathenry your own, through study and dedication, heathenry is your cup of tea. No matter what your persuasion, calling, or path, we hope you enjoyed this video. If you found this to be useful, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to help our channel grow and to help others learn just what heathenry is. As always, from our heathen household to yours, we're hoping you have a wonderful day.